and welcome to GaulCast. I'm Artocatos. It's just me, because I'm just introducing the episode for tonight. We have a special episode. We were going to do the special, the three-part series on God, spirits, and ancestors, but we were woefully unprepared. We just had a lot of different things going on. It just didn't work out. But thankfully, we made some friends over at around Grandfather Fire who wanted to do a kind of a double podcast Supershow type of thing, where we kind of interviewed they mainly interviewed us, but we talked to each other, hung out, and it made a great podcast for their show and for us as well. So we were just horribly unprepared for the episode we were going to do today, but you know what? The show must go on, and it worked out this time. So thank goodness for that. I know that Branogarâ is working on a second podcast that is non-spiritual, pagan-related, as far as I'm aware. And I've decided to start taking on commissions for art projects and idols that I make. I decided to start selling them because my fiance had the brilliant idea of using that money and saving up to buy a forge, which never dawned on me until now because I made a few idols for some friends and didn't charge them anything, and I finally realized I could be making a little bit of money and saving up to buy a forge so I could start making stuff out of metal, which is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while now. So with all that said, something I need to reiterate because a little bit of confusion came up a couple weeks ago. GaulCast is its own entity. We are our own thing. We are not like a branch of or part of any Gaulish, traditional organization. We are supporting the Gaulish community and talking about news and updates from these different groups, but we are our own thing. Branogarâ and myself, we are part of Tauta Galation. We are part of Bessus Neo Galation or BNG. From time to time, we're definitely going to support Seno Bessus Bulgun. I know there's a couple other traditions that are slowly being built. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce their presence yet or not, but they are in the works, and that's good. That's good. That's good for the Gaulish community to have these different groups with different focuses. I think that's a good thing. So we did get a little bit of feedback from the last episode about us possibly doing a YouTube channel, and that's something I definitely want to start doing a little bit of. So far, feedback is very positive that a YouTube channel would be good. It would basically just be putting podcast episodes on there. I want to do some funny, kind of humorous type of, but also very educational videos on there. But we'll see what happens, and it's something that I definitely want to start working on here at some point. I just have to squeeze it into the very tight schedule I have because I have I have the podcast, I have my WordPress, I now have my commission site, and just all these little things I have to fit in on top of being a father and a partner that I need to give equal, if not more, time to. But all good things in time. But that's something that we're definitely going to work on. Branogarâ are probably the one working on those mainly because they have more experience with video editing than I do. But it's something I'm willing to learn. But like I said, all good things in time. I'm starting to ramble. It's getting pretty late in my time when I'm recording this. So yes, around Grandfather Fire, a great group of folks. I didn't know about their podcast until Sarah Odinson reached out to me on Twitter and invited us on the show. I immediately went over on their deal on Spotify and started listening to a couple episodes. Great stuff. Great casual conversation, very much like what Branogarâ and I do. there's three of them just rather than two, and it's just a lot of fun. They crack jokes. They talk spirituality. They talk politics at times. It's a lot of fun, and I was very honored to be on that show with them. So without further ado, here is the GaulCast Around Grandfather Fire Super Show. Enjoy.
Welcome, everybody, to the joint episode of Around Grandfather Fire and the GaulCast. I am Jim Two Snakes. I am a Peruvian shamanic practitioner and have been a metaphysical practitioner for about 30 years. And I'm here with my co-hosts. For some of you who haven't met them, this is Sarenth Odinson. Sarenth.
Hey folks, I'm Søren Thodensen. I am a heathen spirit worker, Gothi of Mimis Brunner Kindred. I'm an author of Calling to Our Ancestors. I run a blog, sarenth.wordpress.com. You can find my work on patreon.com/Søren Thodensen. I am also part of Three Pagans on Tap, which is a video series where we explore alcoholic drinks and occasionally the mocktails and how they relate to our spiritual lives.
And my other co-host, Caitlin Stormbreaker.
I guess that's me. My name is Caitlin Stormbreaker. I consider myself to be a jack of all trades when it comes to spirituality. I am a trained Peruvian shaman underneath Jim Two Snakes as my current/former teacher, ? I've also had some training in yogic philosophy and therapy. I follow a Norse heathen path as well as smatterings of some Native American philosophy in there as well as Buddhism, Hinduism, and I mean, you pretty much name it, I've studied it. And
several other isms.
Yeah, you put all the isms in there and you got me. I do have a blog that I haven't posted anything to in like 2 months now, but that is somewhere around here and I forgot what it was, but it'll be in the show notes, I'm sure.
Show notes.
Yeah, that's me. I've had a rough few weeks, so I apologize to anybody who's meeting me today.
And to the GaulCast, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Really quick, it is stormpaco.home.blog. STORMPAQO.home.blog.
And that's why we're friends, Sarenth. I love you dearly.
I love you too.
All right, GaulCast, take it away.
Well, I am.
You want to go first?
Oh, sure. I'm Artocatos and Branogarâ. I am a Gaulish Polytheist, a Norse and continental heathen. Branogarâ and myself, run the GaulCast podcast. I have a WordPress where I do reconstruction on Gaulish, specifically Helvetian and other Alpine tribes, including Germanic and Ratian traditions and cultures, called Helvetian Namaton at wordpress.com. I'm just constantly working on Gaulish and continental heathen stuff.
And hello, I'm Branogarâ Mori-Magi. I am a Gaulish polytheist. I've been a polytheist for about 20 years. And I am also a Druid aspirant. I am right at the beginning of following my Druidic path. And I do also have a blog site that I occasionally post some things to, and it is arialdefeat.com. And as well as we have the GaulCast website, which is just GaulCast.com. I'm less exciting. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right. I skipped all over my socials and my Patreon and stuff as well. Show notes, people. Show notes. You can Google me. I'm there.
There's so much I forgot to mention for mine.
So, Archer, I have a very pertinent and important question to begin this process with. Are you ready?
Go for it.
All right. My question for Artro is, I know from your episode that you have a background with wrestling trivia. Kenny Omega or Moxley, who's winning tonight?
You can cuss. It is well allowed on this podcast. I don't know about your.
We are
guys'.
rated explicit.
It's on ours.
Yeah, we'll probably just put explicit on ours for this one because fuck, that's a hard question.
Catch you off guard. How about that?
I was not expecting wrestling stuff today. I'm gonna go ahead with John Moxley. I see him winning this one. Yeah.
All right. See, now
I don't feel I don't feel 100% right about it, but that's what my gut's telling me.
Here we have it's official. I'm out. See you guys. No, that's
That was it. The whole podcast.
that's my question. That was everything I had. No.
To be fair, Jim is an expert at throwing people under the bus, but at least he threw you under the bus with a wrestling question.
It's so rare that I get a wrestling question because I'm on Discord and stuff quite a bit, and I've mentioned I'm a wrestling fan all the time, and people just kind of sidestep that with the fact. So that was a nice being thrown under the bus. I
like Klima. Does that count?
So, either of you can actually answer this question. This is more for our listeners than yours because apparently, or I guess your listeners probably know what Gaul or Gaulish is if they're listening to your podcast. But for our less informed or more curious listeners, can you kind of do like a brief overview or an umbrella effect to what Gaul or Gaulish is so that we can kind of get the ball rolling a little?
You want to take this one, Branogarâ?
I can give a brief, vague, but here I am. All right. So most people, when they hear the word Celt, think of Ireland, Scotland, the UK. So that is Celt. They are insular Celt. They're island Celt. Gaul is continental Celt. Gaul spanned from Germany, places in Germany, all the way to actually Turkey here and there. And it is the various Celtic tribes at the continent of Europe.
Yeah, the tribes range from as far as west as Iberia, like Spain and Portugal, to as far east as Anatolia and Turkey. They were all over the place. Gaul specifically is the region that is nowadays France, Belgium, Switzerland, Luxembourg, parts of Germany, and Austria. That is the territory that is known as Gaul, but the Celtic tribes were all over Europe.
So there's a lot of bleed over between various culture groups that, as a heathen, we share with the Gaulish folks.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there is. A conversation I've had recently on Discord where particularly in the Belgian region, which is Belgium, and other tribes that bordered with Germany, they were either going to be allies or enemies of the Germanic tribes. And either way, they shared a lot of different ideas, and there was a lot of influence back and forth between them. Like I said, my reconstruction is mainly focused on the Helvetii tribe, which is like the biggest and most well-known tribe in Switzerland. And in my research, there was a lot of Germanic.
So there was a lot of bleed over between the two tribe groups, between the Helvetii and other tribes.
Yeah, specifically the Cimbri, because when the Cimbrians came down from the Jutland Peninsula, which is Denmark, they started picking a fight with Rome, and the Helvetii joined them during what is called the Cimbrian War. I think it was about a 13-year-long war where the Helvetii and the Cimbrian tribes were very close allies.
Which is funny because there's a lot of Roman history we have where they mush all the various Gallic and Germanic tribes together, and they sometimes these obviously were all Suebe, or these were all
Definitely
all of them were Helvet, huh?
Definitely all the same. Definitely.
That's mainly Tacitus, who was kind of infamous for doing that. He kind of saw them all as the same people.
It's worth pointing out that I don't think Tacitus actually ever went face to face with any of these culture groups. Just for anybody that's reading Tacitus,
which I started. I bought his works, and I've been thumbing through a little bit. And yeah, he shows a lot of respect for what he's talking about, but I don't think he's actually seen them firsthand.
How much of a challenge has it been for you to kind of unweave the ties that have been woven together throughout history and separating the different tribes and the different beliefs? Is that something either of you have attempted to explore, or?
I am not an academic.
I'm with you.
That is not my job. I am. I'm not inclined to the study of trying to pull tribes apart or anything like that. That's not my doing.
Yeah, I was just curious with what Arturo was talking about, because it's fascinating kind of looking at how Christianity comes into an area and just kind of lumps all of these tribes together into a giant pile and says, yep, that's Celtic, or yep, that's Gaulish, or yep, that's this, or that's that. And then when you actually go back and read the histories of these people, you're like, there's very little that's similar between these two people, but you still kind of lumped them in the same group. Why?
Yeah, well, first off, let me start by saying I'm not a scholar or an academic either. I'm just doing the military education. That is just doing as much research as I can with little sources I have. For me, I kind of got lucky as far as picking out the different tribes, because Rome, as a humble move, decided to make a big trophy listing all the names of the Alpine tribes, both Celtic and Ratian, all on one big thing, just saying we conquered them and we conquered them and we conquered them. So it made my job a little bit easier. But for other areas, it's definitely a lot harder. It's like anyone who is trying to map out where these tribes were is going to find it incredibly difficult, because you're getting, second, sometimes third account information on where these tribes were on the map. We're lucky to even have names for a lot of these tribes. So it's not always easy. Sometimes it is, like in my case, where I lucked out because they had a big we just fucked all these people over trophy with names galore on it. So I was able to work with that. But other places are not so lucky. And then you have, guys like Caesar, Tacitus, kind of just don't get all the fine details. Tacitus did try, like I said, he did show a lot of respect in the subject matter. Caesar, not so much.
Considering it was Caesar whooping the shit out of these tribes, I can see why.
Yeah, that was definitely a big dick move to have a big trophy, having everyone you conquered on it.
Well, I think too, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of those tribes, it's not like they were static in one spot either.
No, they were very migratory, and actually, that's how the Helvetii kind of stirred shit up at the beginning of the Gallic Wars. In Caesar's testimony, that's essentially what started his conquest into Gaul. Was the Helvetii tried to migrate out of the Swiss plateau because they kept getting hammered by incoming Germanic tribes. At least that's my theory. There's no definite reason of why they were trying to migrate. The Roman perspective says that they were trying to invade and conquer the mainland of Gaul. But who knows? Because they tried. If that's what they wanted to do, there was another route they could have taken, where we would just straight warfare all the way through. They tried to go south, just kind of tiptoe through the top of a freshly conquered Roman territory, and then go straight up, which was probably the more peaceful, probably more tedious, but definitely more peaceful route. Migration is not just a Celtic, but definitely a Germanic thing. That's how the Cimbrian War started as well, because the Cimbrian tribes tried to migrate south as well, and they ended up stepping on Rome's toes.
Now, I understand from one of your episodes, too, that every tribe had different gods that they worshipped. So in a Gallic continental tradition, how do you decide what gods that you're working with?
So we don't know for sure if it's that every tribe had different gods or if it's that every tribe called their gods something else. We have no real way of knowing because there's not a whole lot of written history that is actually, I think, or any that is actually written by Gauls. They came and went before Christianity hit Europe, and it means that we don't have a lot of the text and the writings and stuff that like you have in, say, Gaelic or Scottish or things like that. So it's less that they all have different gods and more like there are names for gods, and sometimes they do the same things as a different god, and we're not entirely sure if they're the same god or if they're a different god. As for how we choose who to work with, I think for me, it's very personal. It depends on the deity. Like I have the deities I choose to work with and worship, and they might be different than somebody else's. Like I don't think Carl and I have overlap at all. Like for me, it's Cernunnos and Camulus and Epona, a little bit with Nentasvelta and Nematona, but otherwise, that's pretty much my grouping that I do. And from what I can see, that's a pretty common stroke for all of for across the board.
As far as all the names, archaeologists have found various inscriptions all over the place, and that's how we get the. I don't think we have an exact number, but somewhere between 300 and 500 gods of Gaul that we are aware of, and these. Depending on where these inscriptions were found, it kind of tells us which tribes might have worshipped. Epona, Sukelos, Taranis were very much more widespread. Their names or depictions were all over the place. Lugus is another one. I think Cassonius, I found, is all over like Belgium and parts of Switzerland. But the thing is, like Branogarâ was saying, we don't know exactly which ones are just the same deity, just with a different spelling. I know one I found is Windatus, who's known as Windanus, and over in the next tribe over. And you're going to find that a lot. It's just a slight spelling because these inscriptions are, they range from the first, second, third century to probably even older. And you'll notice the writing style changes. You can definitely notice the more Gallo-Roman because you'll see the Lepontic or Lugano alphabet being used and mixed with Roman letters, Greek letters, whereas older ones are going to be straight up Lepontic Lugano alphabet.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because that was like one of the names that Branogarâ pointed out was Nematona, was it?
Nematona.
Nematona.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's pronounced exactly.
I brutalize the pronunciation of everything. I should tell you that now. As far as I know,
right.
I apologize for my barking dog outside.
It's all good.
But she's the goddess of sacred spaces.
That's what I was, because it sounds like a lot of these are Latinized. So that's one of the places I was kind of taking as a jumping off point was with regards to the source material. Are you folks having to kind of like, okay, well, we've got this Latin name. It may not be a Gaulish per se name, but we're just going to lump it?
That does tend to happen. I have one article on a god named Poninus. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. In my research, I found out it is basically 100% Latinized, and although there's no, I think I found an inscription that had a more Celtic way to say it, but a more Celtic name or a version of that name would have been Peninos. And yeah, you'll notice names get Latinized a lot, and something Rome loves to do is synchronize, which is saying, "Hey, your god there, he looks sounds a lot like ours. We're just going to assume they're the same guy. And a lot of times they'll mash the names together, like Catutix Mars, Matutinus Mercury. You'll see that kind of stuff a lot.
Everybody's Jupiter.
Yeah. Everyone's either
Mercury.
Jupiter or Mercury. Yeah, everyone's either Jupiter, Mercury, or Mars. Doesn't matter who.
Oh, wait, we found a female goddess. That must be Minerva.
Has to be. It's got to be either Minerva or Juno.
What I think is funny is Epona stayed Epona.
Yeah.
They were all like, wait, she rides horses and murders stuff in battle? Yes, we'll keep her. Really, guys?
Yeah, Epona's
Really?
one of the few that, she's one of the few that they left as is and actually adopted her into the Roman pantheon.
Well, I mean, she sounds pretty badass. You ride in on a horse and destroy people. I'd keep her too.
She is. My experiences with her have been weird. Weird. But she's interesting.
Yeah.
So
I hate to say it, but I think about Zelda every time I hear the name Epona. And I'm so sorry. I can't not. I loved that horse so freaking much.
We have somebody in GaulChat who every time that they hear Epona, they think of a video game, but a different video game, but I can't remember which one because I don't play video games. But every time they hear it, they're like, this video game. And I'm like, well, all right.
Sure, whatever works.
Whatever helps you process.
Look, as long as Epona is fine with it, I'm fine with it.
Oh,
I can't say otherwise.
can you offer carrots to Epona?
I give her oats. I actually give her oats. Like that. I mean, I don't give her like horse oats. I give her oatmeal oats because that's what I have. Because I don't have horses right now. So I give her oats. So like her offering right now has oatmeal oats.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of that territory, oats were a predominant
crop.
Oh, crop. Yeah, thank you. Words are not my strong suit today. So offering oats is actually very appropriate, I think, in a lot of like Irish, Celtic, and Gaelic offerings are often like milk, honey, and oats.
Milk, butter, honey, oats. I also do clean water because, I mean, if you think about it, like back then, they were drinking water out of the ground. We have filtered water. It's super clean compared to what they would be used to.
Well, and realistically, they were drinking very, very mild beer because the water made them sick.
Terrible.
It was awful. I mean, there's this thing called dysentery that would happen.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was called, but you would die because your insides would turn outside.
Yeah, no shit.
So my daily devotions are clean water, a candle, and usually incense.
Yeah.
Cholera. Yeah,
cholera. Yeah, clean water is a great option.
If I have any on hand, I'll do fresh. In the summer, they get lots of fresh fruit.
I mean, having to haul my own water, people just do not appreciate tap water. Like, tap water in and of itself, given how much energy goes into pumping the water, constructing the pipelines, anybody that's had to look at installing a well or getting the sewer system hooked up, you know how much that costs. And it's not like you're not working all those hours. So you kind of pay the offering forward.
You won't hear a lot of complaint about fluoride if you have to dig your own well.
I grew up on well water.
As did I.
Yeah, so did I. I'm just thinking to myself, okay, like the amount of weirdness just around water is strange because first of all, they'd be like, you just do this little lever and the water comes flowing out and it's clean. This is amazing.
Right.
And then to be told No, that's not good enough. We have to put some in bottles and ship it over from France to sell it to you. Wait, what?
Because French water is different from regular water.
It's fancy water.
Perrier, preferred by the Gaulish gods.
Have you had Perrier? Perrier
So gross.
It's so bad.
So
gross.
hang on. We're living in a blessed time where at least most of us in the continental U.S. can trust our water to a degree.
Unless you live in Michigan.
Unless you live in
Yeah, I was
Michigan.
gonna say.
Right.
So like, does the offering become unworthy if you put it in a can of, say, sparkling water?
Honestly,
I'm still upset we just lost the Perrier commercials. That's the sponsorship's gone now, you guys.
so
We
I
can get
feel
it back with the sparkling water crowd. Come on now.
I feel like it's as long as it's something that's given in with the intention, I don't think it matters, honestly.
I've only had one type of offering that I'm pretty sure was not accepted, and that was because a lot of times I will give leftovers, because I haven't done it in a while, but I used to get up a little earlier for work, go out in the fridge, find some pretty good leftovers, and because I have a little outside shrine, and I would leave my leftovers there for kind of the local cats and dogs and stuff that like to come over and eat it. One day I left because I was late. I was running late for work. I wanted to leave an offering, and I was kind of in a panic, so I dropped off some green beans. I ended up coming back home an hour later because I was vomiting all over the place. That was the first and only time where I was like pretty sure RTO did not appreciate the green beans.
Actually, that's an excellent segue, because this is where the metal of Reconstruction meets the meat of actually lived practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes you figure out a taboo after the fact when you're projectile vomiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't run across that with offerings yet. I have run across that when I have been doing prayers, where they just didn't like the prayer I gave them. And so I got a blinding migraine. And I was just like, well, this is terrible. I'll never say that again.
Yeah, you'll know it. You'll know if they don't like something that you give them.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because I've run into that with a particular Norse deity, Freyr, actually, and I didn't know why at first, but I have a very mild allergy to almonds, and I'm also lactose intolerant. So I was drinking almond milk for a very long time, but it kept upsetting my stomach. And occasionally, if I drank too much, I would end up with very mild hives and was slightly itchy. And then I found out that Freyr was actually knocking on my door going, hey, I want to talk. You and I need to have a conversation. And then I found out one of his animals that's often associated with him is the bee. And then shortly after that, I found out how harmful almond pollination is to bees.
It's so bad.
It is so bad. They literally get nothing from pollinating almond trees at all. And beekeepers are begging people to lay off of the almond consumption because it's so harmful to the hives. And I was like, oh, that makes the sudden almond allergy make a whole lot of sense now.
At the risk of upsetting a lot of vegans everywhere, almond milk is disgusting.
It's pretty bad.
It's
We lost another sponsor.
Wow.
Nut-based milk. It's going to be cashew milk, and it's amazing.
Yeah, we're writing off silk almond milk now. I got to make notes on that.
Shit, can we at least keep the oat milk, folks? Come on.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a bigger fan of the oat milk than I am of any
One of
nut
these days we'll
milk
get
at all.
sponsored.
I don't like the oat milk, but I might try that for Epona.
Yeah, go for
I like it.
go for the extra creamy, because it's got kind of a richer flavor to it. It's very good.
That's why I like the no, I think soy milk is vile.
I agree. I can't do soy at all.
I like the
None.
cashew.
God damn it! There goes another one.
Cashew milk is super good. It's got that super rich sort of flavor to it. And the other one that I will do if I am forced to, because I don't have an option, is hazelnut milk.
Okay.
And it's okay. It's not great, but it'll do.
Yeah. In a pinch.
It'll do.
That actually is a really cool that whole bit we just explored. I really like that, because this isn't just something that's up in your head. This isn't like, oh, well, I'm going to study this particular war and I'll get this insight into this tribe. It's also, this is how I'm living with my gods in real meat space, and these are the actual consequences of my actions.
So one of the things that I've learned, so I've been a polytheist for 20 years. I was a generically, vaguely Gaelic polytheist for a long time, because the Morgan's been with me for almost 20 years, 15 years, 20 years. I don't know, for a long time. And no one strike me down. Until like a year ago, I thought Cernunnos was an Irish god. I was incorrect. And then I found Gaulish Polytheism, and that was like coming home, basically. So the first 4 months, I had so much information, academic information thrown at me. I'm ADHD and also slightly dyslexic. And so I am by no means an academic. I like history if I'm studying it on my terms. I do not like it when they're like, here's all this history. And I'm like, oh, that's so boring. Oh, God. I am a big fan of, at some point, you have to set the book down and live it. And for me, I am more focused on living it than I am on let me reconstruct everything. This is how rituals should be. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, for me, it pushes me further away rather than bringing me closer. It doesn't mean I won't read articles and things like that, but it's not what my focus is. My focus is, okay, now I know these basics. How do I apply them to go with this array of deities that cropped up when I was like, Gaulish Polytheism, this is interesting. Here's this weird dream I'm having. And it was Camulus. And I had the same one on repeat, for months. And so it's just you have to put down the books and practice. You have to. Or what's the point?
Yeah, this is why some folks will be like, well, isn't Reconstructionism a religion? No, it's a methodology, folks. It's a methodology. Yeah. If you're not living the religion, you're essentially LARPing. Essentially,
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with actual LARP.
No, I love LARP. I'm a nerd.
Yay, nerd. One is not the other.
I've 20 years LARPing.
Nice.
But seriously, don't LARP your religion. It's not fun.
No, it's not. And it makes them mad if you're trying to practice.
A little bit.
Well, I imagine with the Gallic polytheism, given that there's not a lot of written records or academic stuff to lean on, you have to rely a lot on UPG and exploring new territory. So how do you incorporate that in, and how do you create or accept new myths or methodologies that are going to be used possibly in the future by other Gallic pagans?
I'm not the person who builds those by any means. I know lots of people who do. And I'll take what I see and I will incorporate it into my practice if it fits into my practice. But other than sort of the outline of these are, the oh God, what is the word? It's not laws. It's not rules. Oh, we just did an episode on this.
Virtues?
Thank you.
I was going to say, that was the last
trying
episode?
to adhere by the virtues across the various groups with Gaulish Polytheists. I generally try and fit the practice to a more modern sort of setting because we are not 2,000 years ago. we are modern day, and that's going to be so different than the Gaulish person sitting on the banks of the Thames, not the Thames, that's the wrong one, that's in England. The river that I can't remember the name of in France that is now completely eluding me, and it goes right through like major.
Not the Lord says it.
My point is, I'm a different person than that person would be. Yes, thank you. The Danube will work. We'll just go with that one. And so it's a lot of trying to incorporate it and move forward with the practice. And I've got people I'll talk to when I'm so sorry for my dog in the background. I'm so sorry.
Fine. You're good. Don't worry
It's
about
a dog. We occasionally have cats that visit.
I think this might be the first dog.
My goblin child's going to go retrieve him.
We've had a lot of cat interruptions, but this might be the first dog. So
I've got one right here.
Jean had a dog that showed up.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
You can bring him in here. That's fine. He's my anxious baby, and he barks a lot.
That's legit.
Oh, yeah,
So much.
that happens.
I try and apply things is what I try and do, and then give feedback.
Yeah, I really agree with that idealism, I guess, when it comes to a religion. While it's all well and good to kind of dig in and see what you can find that was traditional back then to kind of get an idea of what you're going to do now, kind of more like guidelines, I guess. Because honestly, if my ancestors had access to a bick to light their fire, they would use the bick over a flint and steel. My religion is my practice is very practical in the sense that, I will kind of lean towards using a bick versus a flint and steel just because it's going to get that fire going faster. If I have to use paper in the middle of winter because I'm crazy and like to have fire in, January when it's how cold was it that day at the farm, Sarah? I don't know, like 30 degrees outside.
Yeah, it was maybe 30. That was awesome, though.
That was awesome. That was a great day, but we used paper to light the fire. It's a very practical way of getting, he's so cute. I love him. For all of the listeners right now, we just had a boxer show up. He's so cute. I love his face. Oh, squish.
This is like a podcast.
It's Gaulish war dog.
So you broke me. My train of thought just went. I don't know where I was going.
So, getting back on track, this is like where a lot of the metal meets the meat in practice, is that you can't just live your life by, we're going to reconstruct the Gaulish from this particular area in the Gallic War and go. There's not enough information. You actually have to live life. And you can't just, I'm going to go live the life of a itinerant Gallic farmer or soldier. We literally don't have the setups for any of that.
I would like to go live the life of a Gaulish farmer somewhere not near a lot of humans.
Yeah, that would.
I'm just saying.
I'll be your neighbor like 3 hills
my goal
over.
in life. Not gonna lie.
Well, like you said, there's I'm sorry. Like you said, there's no really written account on how they lived, how they practiced. Just like for me, the Helvetii were in like the plateau of Switzerland, surrounded by mountains. So, and I lived in a mountainous area for about 10 years or so. So I was able to relate that way. Like, if winter's coming and the snows are already starting to build up on the mountain, like, what would I be doing? So there's an example of how personal experience tags along with how to reconstruct. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned, Branogarâ, that really kind of resonates with me is something that you said about what fits into my practice. While it's great to study a religion and study all the practices and everything that goes into it, if it is impractical or doesn't sit well with you, you don't have to follow that portion of the practice. You can honor it by acknowledging its existence and giving it breath in a way through like a picture on your wall. Like most people are not comfortable with living in the woods alone. Most people are more comfortable living in a city around people. So what? not a big deal. You can have a picture of a tree on your wall to honor the way that those people lived in the forest. You don't have to go live in the forest yourself. It's basically
absolutely.
whatever feels good in your heart. Practice that within the practice. Don't feel like you are pigeonholed into this box of, practice that this person online is telling you have to follow in order to be an actual Gaul or a Peruvian shaman or a heathen or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, you know that's bullshit. Everybody has to find their own will tree.
Hey, I got mine tattooed on my body, motherfucker. It's with me always.
See? So you know. No, I think that's a legit point, though.
So actually, that brings up a question. One of our Discord questions was, do any Gaulish figures, feast days, or practices survive through Christianity? And is that what you're building off?
Unfortunately, a lot of when Christianity came to Switzerland, a lot of pagan stuff that was still standing was basically knocked over. There was a temple to Poninus in the St. Bernard Pass that was actually built by the Romans. So it was nice to have the Romans building a temple honoring a Celtic god. But then when Christianity came through, a bunch of looters came by, knocked it down, stole a bunch of crap out of it. And then I think the emperor of the Eastern Empire rewarded them for that. So not a lot has survived, but I think, Switzerland's kind of tricky because you had different cultures kind of mixing in, because after Rome fell, you had the Germanic Alemanni tribe and Swabian tribes kind of come in and basically wiped out the Celtic identity. But I think some traditions kind of still, stayed with it, and it became, possibly, it's just a theory I've had right now, and it became modern folk. Like Switzerland's got all kinds of different folklorish creatures and stories that I think, could possibly be as old as Gaul. We don't know. That's something I'm going to have to really look into. Right? If anything has survived, I think that's really the best route it's going to survive, is through passing into legend and becoming folklore.
So y'all aren't the only people thumbing through Claude Lacouteau.
Let me see. We had a couple other questions on our server too, if you guys want to. This is for Branogarâ. On your site, you mentioned being a worshiper of An Morgan and Cathuboda.
Yes.
Could you talk about your worship for them and how similar or different they are? I know some see them as the same goddess.
Okay. So An Morgan, I have been with, like I said before, for a right long time. And Cathuboda, I've been with for about 5 or 6 years, maybe 7. I don't know. Not quite as long. For me, I am I hate this phrase, hard polytheist. Every deity is unique to themselves. And they are very different beings. Both of them are not gentle. I would definitely say not gentle, ever. But the Morgan is more orderly, a little more, this is a terrible word to use, but it's the only one I can think of, civilized feeling. Like my interactions with her have been, she's a lot more patient to a point, I did make the mistake of ignoring her for like 2 years straight, and it was just a terrible idea. I was having a time. Don't give me that look.
I'm not living your life. It's all good.
Having a rough go.
She's not my lady. Much respect to her, but she's not mine.
So she's more patient. She's more I think she's adapted a little better to modernity. I can't say that word. than Katubodwa has. Katubodwa is like on Morgan on hard mode, to put it in a video game phrase. She is just this side of feral.
Ouch. That's what that is. That's
she comes off aggressive and impatient, and she's very much the kind of Dewoy that she will absolutely pick you back up, but then she's going to shove you right forward again and tell you to find your balance.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's difficult at best. My worship is a little more private. I don't discuss that particularly much because my relationship with them has been my sole reason to have not died on more than one occasion. Mm-hmm. But needless to say, the two of them are very, very different. I do not prefer one over the other, also because I like to survive.
Makes sense.
But they are very different. And Katubodwa is where the Morgan will be in your face right here. Katubodwa will be in your face right here with sharp things. She is who I got to experience the feeling of being torn apart by crows.
Oh, yeah.
When I was not catching on fast enough that she, in fact, was not on Morgan. Because for a while there, me being the completely stupid human that I am, did not realize that it was a different deity for like a year. Like, I just thought Morgan was in a bad mood. I didn't know it was somebody else entirely. So it was a fun experience. I don't recommend it.
Well, so the analogy that sprang to my mind was, while on Morgan is the sword itself, Katubodwa is the knife's edge of survival.
It's a good analogy, yeah.
I've always thought her to be kind of primal, I guess. I think would be a
very
good
primal.
Yeah, primal was a word I heard, but it transferred into...
Which is what I meant when I said Morgan was more civilized. I couldn't think of the word. Katubodwa is primal and Morgan is not.
Yeah.
She's older.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear that through the way you speak about her. She's definitely a more primal, more wilder side of it. And that's where the analogy of she is the knife's edge of survival. Either you live or die.
Yes.
And there is no or.
No, there isn't. And if she decides you're going to live, guess what?
You're going to fucking live and you're going to hate it.
You don't actually get the option to not. So she's a rough one to work with, and I definitely try not to encourage people who are not experienced in dealing with deities to jump right into bed with Morgan or Katubodwa. I'm like, maybe start somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe start somewhere a little nicer.
Start with Epona. She's way nicer.
Start with something easy like Loki.
Yes, that's definitely what I would have said.
I'm out.
All right, Saren's quit. It's just me and Jim now. We don't have the serious one anymore, guys. We're in trouble.
Jesus Christ, this shit again. Honestly though, I love Loki very deeply, but depending on what aspect of him you get, good fucking luck.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes he's the party god, and sometimes I'm going to literally end the world because of grief.
Yeah, when I first started getting into being pagan and learning about polytheism, I started out with the Egyptian deities because, this will sound terrible.
Gateway gods.
So
gateway gods.
We actually have a theory that the Egyptian gods are the gateway gods into
they're like, hold
polytheism.
on, let me just hold on to you for a little bit till you figure out where you're going. And that's literally what my experience was like. They're like, you're definitely not Christian. Just hang out here. Where you're going.
Yeah.
And we'll just make sure nothing kills you.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And then
Just hang
I
out
went
with
from
us.
them to the Norse deities because I was like, well, I'm super huge amounts of Russian. Like,
This seems
it's
like a
close
good place
enough.
for me.
close enough.
Knock, knock, knock. Hi,
Depending
Odin.
on who you listen to, they are the same.
No, I've
so-
never worked with Odin, but my partner is a devotee of Odin, and so I have a 9-foot spear in my bedroom.
Yes.
Like actual functional spear.
Nice.
No, you don't need to get it.
No, don't ever piss them off.
Right? But
They
no,
got a 9-foot reach on them.
I worked
As
with
the joint
and I'm gonna
podcast becomes
mispronounce
Show the
this.
Weapons!
Right?
I worked with Frey and Freya.
Here's
For
mine.
That showing
for
up.
about 2 years, and they also went, you don't actually belong to us, but I'm the closest you're going to figure out right now, so I guess I'm going to hang out with you for a bit. And Freya was both terrifying and lovely to work with.
Yep, sounds about right.
Yep.
And I actually still keep an altar to her and Frey. And the Egyptian gods, because they all babysat me for 2 years while I figured out that I belonged to Anne Morgan, who was basically just standing there like,
I love polytheism.
this one's
When is she going to
stupid.
show up? Yeah, well, at one point in my path, I was a devotee to Odin when Anne Morgan decided to show up and go, hey, you should hang out with me. And Odin is like, no. And she's like, fuck you, she's going to hang out with me. And I'm like, all right, you guys figure this shit out because I'm not. Gonna choose?
I'm not getting in the middle of this argument.
No, you guys have fun. I'm going to go sit over here and let me know what you decide. And then Anne Morgan didn't really give up. She just kind of looked at me and goes, whenever you're ready,
Yeah.
I'll be over here.
That's what she's more patient.
Mhm.
She's more patient. Karanos has been with me since I was a child. So is Nyx. Yeah, Nyx. Greek. Nyx.
Yeah, the
Primordial
goddess.
darkness Nyx.
Okay,
Nice.
yeah, that's my cat's name. I named her that before I knew about that Nyx. She literally disappears in a dark room. If her eyes are not open, you can't see her at all.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yes, but she's the cutest little primordial darkness.
She
She
really
is. Nyx
should go
was
get her.
why I was scared of the dark as a child and why I love it as an adult.
Makes sense.
And Karanos was just there all the time. I thought he was my neighbor's pet deer. Turns out my neighbor didn't have a pet deer.
I think we broke Sarah on that one.
And I just in my head, I have Nyx. She's a cool goddess.
Cool goddess. It's a little scary when she's mad, but she's nice.
Yeah. She's
I
real
mean-
scary
Right
she's
now,
mad.
but that's all right.
I mean, let's be real. Any of our gods are scary when they get pissed. It doesn't matter how sweet and light they are. If you somehow manage to piss a god off, if you're not feeling holy terror, I'm not sure.
I've done it so many times.
Yeah. Are you even doing it right, bro?
I mean, but that I actually kind of want to segue into one of these other listener questions from that. So when you start figuring some of these things out and the gods kind of bring themselves forward, do you find connection points between the experiences you've had and the lore? Like one of our listener questions was on have any Gaulish figures, feast days, or practices survive Christianization? But also they had another question about Gaulish star lore. And so there's some things that I've turned around years after the fact where I've had this experience of, I can't even think of the experience offhand right now, but I've had an experience. And then later on, I find out, oh, there's this archaeology that links up this perfectly that I didn't know about years later.
For me, less so because I don't read we don't have a lot of lore, so I don't know.
That's fair.
Sky, stop it. You're not on the podcast.
It is now.
Just trying.
Yes, I am, and I'm adorable. We have another dog that showed up, and they are beautiful.
She's
Want to squish?
She tries to help with everything. She's my school.
Helping.
She's an underbite.
Aw.
Your underbite.
Oh.
So one of the other questions was actually, what does Gaulish or Druidism look like? Since most of it is based off of Welsh and Irish practices, how would you differentiate with Gallic Druidism?
We're rebuilding it.
For me, I see rebuilding the lore, rebuilding the cultures and tradition as kind of a Gaulish druidic practice. For me personally. But yeah, we don't have a whole lot on the lore. I think there's that mistletoe collecting ritual, which I believe was Gaulish. I'm not sure if that's insular or continental. But yeah, like Branagarâ said, we're currently rebuilding it as we speak.
Literally, like currently rebuilding it.
I mean,
we don't have a lot of anything to, like, in general, as Gaulish Polytheists, we got a whole lot of not a goddamn thing, basically. Almost everything that we have is based off of archaeological finds. And with Druidry, we're trying to rebuild it. It's a slow going process. It's going to be a slow going process for a long time because we have to write the cosmology and we have to write the rituals and we have to delve into what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And it's kind of, it's in the very beginning stages right now.
That's actually really fascinating.
Sorry, brother.
Go ahead. I was going to say, that's really fascinating in a way, though, because, like, I was, is there a group of you that's doing this? Do you all compare notes on UPG? How do you go about actually building this? That's a fascinating question.
So
there's a few Gaulish servers on Discord. The main one is GaulChat, which is where a lot of us get together and share these ideas, kind of bounce ideas and theories off of each other. Probably one of the most active channels on there is the Gnosis and UPG channel. And yeah, that's where we get a lot of our information. Like, I read some things like, oh, that's really interesting. I need to look into that. That's definitely the main way right now is through the small handful of Discord servers.
Where do a lot of your inspiration for reconstructing rituals come from? Are you pulling from other practices, or are you just pulling from what feels right in the moment as you set up a ritual for a specific deity?
A little bit of A, a little bit of B. I definitely am very much a go with your gut type of practitioner when it comes to doing ritual. I will try to do some homework. I will try to see if there is some type of written account, maybe through a Roman general that saw something weird. Or sometimes, like I said, the Helvetii does have a Germanic kind of flair to it. So I will look at not necessarily Norse, but definitely continental Germanic practices and see if there's something there that could be drawn from without full-on copying.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because a lot of those tribes would have had to interact with each other at some point in any given point in history. So who's to say that a surviving tribe's practices didn't actually belong to the Gaulish practice itself? I think a lot of that would be very difficult, and I'm very appreciative, as well as I'm sure many other people are, for the work that you guys are doing within this narrative. How do you decide which rituals are the ones that are to keep and which ones are meant to kind of fall to the wayside? Do you create the ritual and then give it to the community and say, tell me what you think about this, and get feedback from people? Or is it more of like an intimate group setting where you have a few people working on a specific ritual, and then you send them home with it and have them do kind of work and kind of pick and choose like what aspects work and what aspects don't?
we'll definitely bring what we did to the community and see what people think and see if there's any advice or hints, not hints, just outsider opinion on what we did. There are smaller traditions forming within Gaulish Polytheism. Branogarâ and myself are part of Betsis Duo Galation, which is or BNG for short. It's a Gaulish tradition, and probably one of the things that we all. It's a smaller group of us, and the one thing we do a lot of is talk about ritual and what would be, I guess, appropriate in a modern context. What's something that we might have evidence on that is something that is not feasible in a modern setting. That kind of thing. Yeah. Is there anything to add to that, Branogarâ? I'm kind of drawing a blank.
No, not really. That pretty much answers it.
I actually have a question, and I don't know if you two have discussed it, if you discussed it on any of the servers, but I think it's an interesting question because there's so little lore that you're going from, because there's so little that you are reconstructing from. It actually puts you in a unique position of being one of the very few polytheist groups that could be really forward looking and not totally marred down by the past. Have you thought about that at all? Where you'd like it to go, how you'd like it to shape the future? How would Gaulish polytheism fit into where humanity needs to go?
It is actually something that we do discuss off and on in our Discord servers. And it kind of all comes up different ways. Like for me, I'd like to see it pushed more towards ecological. I'm so sorry. Ecology conservation. But that's me. I'm a little bit of a eco warrior, so to speak. Hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
Took my puppy away to go eat dinner. Because that's why she was whining in the background.
Gotcha.
And like we've talked about it. Like I know that Tauta Galation would like to do eventually have a nice big chunk of land for Gaulish polytheists to be able to gather on and worship on and tend to and things like that. But we are in a unique position, and we are definitely aware of that.
And there's definitely a lot of different ways that it could go. And I know it has changed from time to time. I believe Gaul Chat was supposed to be a podcast initially, then it just became a Discord server. I don't know. I think that's right. I think that's how I heard it. Anyway, but yeah, it's definitely eco conservation. Social justice is another big one that's kind of come up lately. Is that Gaulish polytheists are getting more adamant about, and just it is kind of spreading, getting bigger and kind of going in those really cool directions.
Good. If you folks can stave off that horrible infection of racist bullshit before it spreads, more power to you.
Best. We're actually pretty upfront about how much it's not accepted and how much it will get you nice and quick driven out of our community.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a solid zero tolerance policy.
Unfortunately, a lot of them have come together on Facebook and formed a Facebook group, which, that's sadly we can't avoid that cancer either. But we've come together pretty quickly to keep it away from the main body of Gaulish polytheism.
I feel that. I do. You know, everybody's got their own version of the AFA walking around being a bunch of dicks.
That's so true.
You were going to say something, though, brother.
Oh, no, I was just kind of thinking about that a little bit, that it's very hard to keep that kind of faction out of the community, and it's just a challenge that we're all dealing with in various places. There's a dumb question on here too. They're asking, do you like the Asterisk comics?
I don't know.
I do.
Right.
I've read one or two of them. I've watched the one live action movie where they go to Egypt. It's hilarious. I might. There's an Asterix game on Xbox. I might download here soon. It's actually pretty decent priced. And I think Hulu's going to start an Asterix show. I think I read something like that online. I really hope they do, because it's something I actually stumbled upon in high school. Our French teacher was also the Spanish teacher. I was taking Spanish, and she was using the same room, and she happened to have like a handful of Asterix comics. And I was reading them. That was actually one of my first exposures to Gaul, aside from the Rome Total War games. And even though it was in French, I could kind of understand the gist of what was going on. It's pretty funny. There's a lot of not really double entendres, but like there's a druid named Getafix because he makes a potion that makes you super strong, and that makes me laugh every time.
And it was also suggested in our chat that Laura O'Brien talks about reconstructing stuff at the irishpaganschool.com, and you guys, the suggestion was there that that might also be a good place to come up with overlaps in technique if there's anything that you guys are ever looking for that was suggested.
I am actually enrolled in Laura O'Brien's Irish Pagan School.
All right. Well, how about that? See, we're thinking alike. How about this?
Well, I'm not allowed to ignore the Gaelic stuff. I follow a Gaelic deity.
True enough. True enough. Well, I know your episodes tend to go about an hour. So is there anything that you wanted to make sure that we talked about? Any questions that you have for us or anything else you'd like to cover?
Nothing off the top of my head. I mean, it was a huge honor to get asked to be on here. I didn't know you guys had a podcast until we got invited, and I started listening to a couple episodes. There are a lot of fun. I love what you guys talk about. Like I said, huge honor to be on here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Wait, I'm gonna look up our virtue of the month, and then I'm gonna ask you guys about it.
Ooh,
There you go.
this is good. This is good stuff.
Good thinking.
Wait a second, I gotta find it. Gonna pull up my spreadsheet. I'm a little neurotic.
When I started GaulCast, I was just winging it. And then like maybe 2 episodes after I released the episode, Branogarâ comes up and goes, "Hey, do you need a co-host?" Sure. And they immediately just started slamming with spreadsheets and planning and all this scheduling. And I was like, wow, way more organized than I am.
You found your gym.
Yay!
I don't have the depth of knowledge that Artocatos has, but I have a loud mouth and a big personality and a neurotic need to organize things.
And I need that. Because my fiance is like that too.
Very helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm actually working on starting another podcast that's entirely unrelated to religion. So
Plug
I
it.
need
had
projects.
this idea for a podcast, and I was like, let me introduce you all the organization things.
Nice.
All right, let me find. So our where's it at? Curriculum? No, Cladabesses? Is that what I wanted? Gotta find it. Sorry, I talked to my computer a lot.
It's all good.
Right.
It's got a spirit in
Good
it.
friends.
There's people
My
that
computer.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I talked to my computer, my machinery, my phone, my guitar.
I'm
my
going to
car.
massively mispronounce this word. We're just going to start that off. That
That is also my job. So
Yep.
in GaulCast, and that theme is I can't pronounce shit.
Yeah.
I'm bad at my own language, much less
Me
any
too.
other.
I'm a self-proclaimed writer, so I write more than I speak.
I do too. I mispronounce words in English because I see them written down, but I never hear them.
Yeah. In my head, there's a certain pronunciation.
Took me forever to figure out how to say serendipitous correctly.
Yeah, I feel that one.
Yeah.
Yo.
All right, so our virtue of this month is Aristoxta, which is piety. And we believe Aristoxta, where I'm just going to say piety because I'm going to mispronounce it so badly, it's over and over again. It's going to make Nellos cry. Is the most actions for the greater good of the community or tribe. Piety is necessary for kindred connections within the community. Each tribe has their own love and worship of the Dewoy in compliance with them. Each should have the willingness to put in a work to build a relationship and maintain the relationship for oneself. And it is important so that one can be an effective contributing member of the tribe. So, share your thoughts.
Hey, Jim, you first. You look like you're thinking.
No, wait a minute. No. No, I think that's a great approach. I think it's something that's really difficult to understand in modern society. And so it's important that we talk about that as a virtue. So the traditions I'm trained in, they're high mountain traditions. They're very localized, small family groups. And you have to approach everything with that sense of humbleness and that wanting to connect to everybody else, to have that good relationship with them and the land, because it's a matter of survival. You know, the modern internet troll would not survive ancient times. This is, you cannot go around and be all ego and brash and having no piety or respect for anybody else. It just doesn't work. And so it's a concept that we really need to re-emphasize in our society. And we do see it in some spots, but it's hard to recognize it often, especially in an age when we're only so connected by electronics as opposed to face.
Especially right now when all we have is electronics.
Yeah. So a quick definition of piety for clarity for some individuals, because I had to look it up because I thought I knew what piety meant. But excuse me, the quality of being religious or reverent, and then similar is devotion, a belief or a point of view that is accepted with unthinking conventional reverence. Having piety within a community, not necessarily connected to religion or deities, to kind of remove spirituality from it, to have that unthinking devotion to somebody or something else is very difficult for our society because it's the all for one for all thinking that we were raised with. You look out for yourself before you look out for anybody else. You do for yourself before you do for anybody else. And and we often go to extremes with that, to where we deal with selfishness and arrogance, and ignorance often goes hand in hand with arrogance. We saw it in 2020 with the anti-maskers and the anti-vaxxers. If you look at them, they did not care about the wider community. They refused to wear a mask to keep others safe because it quote unquote infringed on their freedoms. To have that arrogance and egotistical mindset, toxic egotistical mindset, because I believe that egotism can be healthy if utilized correctly, but that's a different topic. There's a lot of growing we have to do as people. You have to be able to trust yourself well enough within a community in order to connect with them, to kind of anticipate needs, but also have the idea of, if you're going to offer someone help, give them a list of things that you are able to help them with. Because if somebody is struggling, and you say, thoughts and prayers, I'm here if you need me, that person who is struggling doesn't know how to ask for help. They don't know what they need in that time. But if you are capable of saying, I can bring you dinner, or I can do your laundry, or I can clean your house, or I can take your kids to work or school or whatever, offering up what you are capable of doing in those times of need is, in my sense of thinking, is a sense of piety towards community, because you have that unthinking devotion to support that community, to support the spiritual growth of that person or people in general. Being able and willing to offer up what it is that you're capable of doing is, in my mind, a sense of good piety, of having that good sense of understanding of community and how it works.
Mm-hmm. You're up, Sarah.
Okay. So, as a heathen, a lot of this flows directly into how I understand piety as well. So, if it's the more sacred of actions for the greater good of community or tribe is necessary for kindred connections, yep, we've got that. Each tribe member has their own love and worship of the Dewoi, or the Aesir, Vanir, and Jotnar in our religion. Each should have a willingness to put in the work to build a relationship and maintain that relationship for oneself. Yep. And it's important so that one can be an effective contributing tribe member. Yeah, that's pretty much piety for us too. There's, in that regard, I think this cuts across pretty much any polytheism I can think of. It's not just what's good for you, because you don't exist in solitude. You are one among a multiple. Whether you draw your circles of what constitutes your tribe very small or very wide, you never act alone. And your piety should be towards what is the best and highest good. What is, whether you're looking at this through virtue ethics, utilitarianism, or whatever your personal philosophy is, mm-hmm. You need to be striving towards that for not only yourself, but for your gods, ancestors, your spirits, and your community. And those are interrelated connections. You are building, interacting with, co-creating with creation itself. Your piety needs to include what you touch, what you taste, what you hear, what you smell, what you feel. It is personal, interpersonal, and interconnected. Piety is a state of mind as well. In addition to the other things that have been brought up here, what I allow into my mind, in my worldview, informs my piety. We are not our ancestors. The past gets a vote, not a veto. The ancestors, while they support us and while they walk with us and sometimes behind us, kicking, shoving our asses towards what we need to do, I still have to live this
that
life.
Experience.
A little bit. Likewise with the gods in Vatir, I still maintain my own sovereignty, and my actions need to be for what is pious towards them and the people that I live with, my family, my loved ones, my tribe. So piety is complex, and I think that not thinking about it is dangerous, that not considering the worldview and where these thoughts lead us to is dangerous, because just blindly following, I don't think that's part of your conception of piety or mine. I don't think that's anybody that's sitting here part of or listening to this podcast. I don't think that's really an active factor. I think that it requires us to really think about ethical considerations. It requires us to think about what is piety in regards to living in relationship with other beings. It's one thing if I consider what is my highest and best good, but when I start expanding that circle of consideration to other people, I think that's where you're going to find a lot of development in what piety is, because if it's no longer about me and my relationships alone, but about us and our, and you take the I out of it, it becomes a we, us, our. piety's flavor changes drastically at that point, because it's no longer just what suits me. It might be where I fit in the scheme of things, but it's how do I hold these relationships well and healthily?
So for me, I agree with pretty much everything all of you have said. But for me also, we have what's called Trugacaria, which is compassion and empathy, which is another one of our virtues. And for me, piety ties so tightly in with compassion and empathy, and how much you need those to be able to build a community and to be able to maintain those relationships. Because if you lack compassion and empathy, you're never going to get anywhere with piety. You're not going to have it. Because to have it, you have to have compassion and empathy. But you also have to know where to draw the line so that you're not overextending yourself. And I think one of the things that when people look at piety and they look at the definitions and they look at the context and how to apply it and how to, be pious and all of that, one of the things that is not terribly thought about is, in order to be a contributing, productive, healthy member of your tribe, you have to have compassion for yourself. You have to know if somebody is hurting and you go to help them and the lashback is so hard that it hurts you, to step back. You have to know, yep. I want to go help that, because my biggest one is, if somebody needs something, I will give them quite literally my last dollar, the shirt off my back, my whatever they need. I will just give it to them. It doesn't matter how much it hurts me. I will do it. And so I've had to learn, in order to be pious and in order to be able to be a part of the community, that I have to know when to pull back.
It's hard to buy offerings naked.
I'm sorry, what?
It is hard to buy offerings naked.
It is. Fortunately, I do grow a lot of mine. Granted, if I go on my front porch naked, I might get arrested. But I do grow a lot of mine. But it's if you don't tie them in together and you don't remember that you have to have your compassion for yourself as well, and your own well-being and your own mental health, you're not going to be able to be as pious as you'd like to be and as good of a member of the tribe as you'd like to be. And you also can't give of yourself to the Dewoi, to the gods, as much as you would like to, if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, if you have nothing left to give, what are you going to offer?
Exactly.
You give everything away, what do you have left?
Exactly. That's been a hard lesson for me.
Me too. Yep. Feel
Hard
that
lesson.
one. Yeah, that was a few 4x4s, not clue-by-4s, 4x4s that clocked me, and then a few railroad ties and a few other things.
A train that got dropped, like
yeah,
piano. Yeah, no, I understand.
Yep. Is that train called Jim?
Well, Jim, Sarenth, Beth,
sometimes.
My own writing, apparently. When my own NPCs throw me under the fucking bus, that's when I get a little pissed off.
I find that when I write my poetry, like, I can usually tell if I've stretched myself too thin when I'm like writing my poetry, and I'm like, that's rude.
How dare I write this to myself?
Yeah.
I think that something that came to mind as we were talking, piety to one's community also means that I need to be in good working order. And as, say, a heathen spirit worker, that means that all my soul parts, they might not be squeaky clean, but they at least need to be in good functioning order. I have to maintain the car so I can
keep spiritual WD-40.
Mm-hmm. I still need to go drive this car.
The piety, the piety from the community also goes in the same vein as that. If you as a member need to step back and take a break and care for yourself, then that community needs to step up and care for you during that process. You cannot be the sole caregiver of that community and expect to survive. If your community looks at you and goes, well, how dare you back off? I needed you then. Well, I needed myself, and you need to respect that. And be reciprocal to me in that moment, you know. And I may sound angry about this, and I'm sorry I mentioned it earlier. I've had a difficult fucking week, but it's a thing that I think our communities need to learn about our elders. You know, our elders are not vending machines.
No, they're not.
Just like our elders, our gods are not vending machines. You cannot continue to take from them and expect to not give anything in return. If your elder says, I need a bit of time to step back and take a break, you know, thank you for being patient with me. I need some time to myself. You have to respect that space.
I've experienced that as a witch a lot, because I've been a witch for 20 years, where I've got new ones that are just like, give me the information. I'm like, I haven't slept in 2 days. Use Google.
Yeah, Google and TikTok are your friend right now.
No, TikTok is not. Burn it with fire.
As I'm looking through here, the some of the other definitions for piety, the one that actually jumps out at me and that I think is what we are all talking about here in our various ways is the Cambridge English Dictionary one. The very first meaning they have listed is strong belief in a religion that is shown in the way someone lives.
Yes.
So by default, that virtue asks the question, are you living out the other virtues? And
a good 90% of the time I am. About 10% of the time I'm too busy doing stuff for everybody else.
And it also says that I noticed the way they phrase that, it's shown in the way someone lives. It's not dictated.
Yes.
So it implies that the piety is how you're living your life. It's not a set of hard rules that you're enforcing on other people.
No, and that's one of the things that that I really like about being just a polytheist is generally we don't encounter that as much unless you're dealing with Christians. But
you can say that 4-letter word on our podcast. It's fine.
I have a very Christian mom. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home, and I get real tired of the push to, well, you have to be Christian. You have to be Christian. You have to be Christian. I'm like, Mom, I'm a perfectly good person. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't always.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I had a rough couple of decades.
Yep.
I'm almost 40. I know I don't look almost 40. I am almost 40. A rough couple of decades. And I'm a good person. And I don't think, like, for me, it's like, it gets pushed a lot. Like, these are the rules you have to live by. These are the rules you have to live by. And I'm like, no, those aren't my rules. Those are the absent God's rules. You live by the absent God's rules. I'm going to live by my God's rules.
Yeah.
I like that definition that you gave, the Cambridge one, because that's kind of the direction I would go with my definition, is that the piety is, our connection to the gods, and kind of strengthening that bond with how we treat not only ourselves, but our tribe, our community around us. Like one of the few Norse gods I follow is Tyr. And so I'm very good about not lying, not acting dishonorably. Like, I'll joke around, I'll mess around, but it's all, it's all in good fun. And I typically will, like, if I play a practical joke with someone, I'll apologize afterwards and just kind of hang out and shit. So it's finding that honor in little bits of life. I'm not going around, hail Tyr to everyone I meet. It's just my personal actions and how I communicate with the people. How do I participate at work with my coworkers, and not just here, but just all the gods that I follow. It's those little nuances of life that it honors our gods and it honors our community by just being not being a dick. You got to find that fine line of not being a zealot and not and not being too much of an introvert where you just want nothing to do with your community. I'm an introvert, but I do try to help out my neighbors. My neighborhood actually has an app called Neighborhood, and people asked for someone to help cut firewood or help fixing this, help fixing that, and it's something I try to participate in. But I just moved to my community a year or so ago. And I don't really know anyone, but I still try to be a helpful part of that community, not just for the sake of the community, but for the sake of my gods, to help out my area, my tribe, if that makes any sense.
I think the important part is just sort of a recap for everybody through our wandering definitions between all of us, and the point that we're all really trying to drive home is, how are you actively living your spirituality? How actively are you living your path, and how is that action affecting the people around you? We're not talking about pushing your religion on other people. We're not talking about judging people for not following the same virtues that you hold as an individual. How are you holding yourself to those virtues, whether it's looking inward or looking outward to the community? How are you using those virtues to support the community around you and help others grow and flourish within their own paths? How are you guiding others to the river?
I think Emily phrased it fairly well. Paraphrase here in the chat room said that, it's really, if you look at Christianity and how piety is used, sometimes it's more important to actually live it than have the appearance of it. So, well, I want to thank you both for joining us tonight. This has really been a lot of fun, and I don't know, we've had a really good time. How about you?
We have. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for coming on. It's been great.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So anybody that's listening to Around Grandfather Fire, the notes will be show notes. We'll put all the links and stuff in as usual, so you can find their Discord server and everything else that you need to find.
Yep. And plug your pluggables, folks. Where can they find your podcast?
Oh, you can find our podcast on anywhere that carries a podcast, because I got real busy the first week that I was on the podcast. You can find us on GaulCast.com. On GaulCast.com, you can find all of our social media, our Patreon, as well as the 9,000 different ways you can listen to us.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to have to make sure we do it again.
Yeah,
absolutely. For sure.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent.